Hi everyone, welcome to Maximum Attack Rallying and to your Monday dose of rallying goodness. I just want to start this video by saying thank you to everyone that commented on the last video where I shared some slightly unfortunate personal news about why I'm back here in the UK to have medical treatment. So yeah, I'm just really grateful for everyone who commented and sent their best wishes. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. So thank you for that. It was touching how many comments there were. So I appreciate it. I really do. So you find me in Norfolk again. I'm sitting in my Ford Cougar hire car, which I might make a video about because it is horrible. I do not understand why anyone buys these cars. Oh my God, I could do a massive rant about it. This car is bloody awful. It's horrible, but we are not here to talk about that. We are here to talk about Rally Islas Canarias. So let's do that instead. I do fear that the camera might go flying at some point. I'm sort of tense because I'm worried that it's going to fall because it's perched in a really inconvenient way, but that's this car. In my Peugeot, I can find a nice little spot to put it in, but in this car, no, that's just another problem with it. Anyway, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the rally at the weekend. A few people have said that they thought it was boring. I've seen a few comments about that online. I don't really buy into that myself. I do think there are a couple of issues with this weekend potentially. Obviously, the Toyota dominance is not ideal, is it? You know, the battle between teammates is good, but having one team that's so dominant, that's so much faster than everyone else, that was clearly the fastest car by absolutely miles, is not good for the sport. You know, we really need Hyundai to up their game, particularly as we get into the gravel events. That said, I think Toyota dominance is inevitable, isn't it? I don't see how Hyundai can catch up this year, so I think that's a done deal. Hopefully next season we'll mix things up a little bit more. That said, though, I do think that that next year Toyota will probably still have the best car. We'll come to that. That's a topic for another day, isn't it? I think the other thing that is maybe a little bit problematic is that the cars are now so well developed. The suspension is so good, isn't it? They have so much travel. The tyres are so good. The dampers are so good that maybe a little bit of the spectacle has been lost, hasn't it, on tarmac rallies, because the cars just don't move around as much as they used to. The problem is I don't really know what we can actually do about that, because if you limit travel, if you limit the damper technology, you end up losing gravel performance, and you have to be careful with that, don't you? You don't want to lose the gravel spectacle in favour of the tarmac spectacle when the calendar especially is balanced towards gravel. So it's a tricky one, isn't it? I'm not too sure how you fix it. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I will say this is one of the side effects of moving away from production-based cars, isn't it? And if you look at Group A cars and at early WRC cars, they moved around a lot more, especially on tarmac, because the cars were much more compromised. Now we've reached a point where the cars are so well developed where even within the current constraints of Rally 2, the teams have found out how to get the most from the suspension, the pickup points and the dampers and all of that stuff. You know, the cars have maximised, as this stupid car beeps at me for some reason, the teams have maximised the cars, and couple that with the fact that the drivers have maximised performance by realising that sideways isn't fast, especially on tarmac. You reach this point, don't you? You reach this inevitable point. That said, was this rally boring? I don't think it was. I think that's somewhat unfair. We had a massive battle between Ogier and Solberg. We had Solberg crashing out of the penultimate stage. Stop beeping at me, you stupid machine. We had Solberg crashing out on the penultimate stage when he was actually gaining and within a couple of seconds of the rally lead. I just feel like maybe some people have a bit of a downer on tarmac rallies, but I think calling this rally boring is a bit of a stretch, to be honest with you. I don't buy that. I thought it was a good rally. You know, this is a unique event with loads and loads of history, very exciting roads, and I'm fine with it. So there. Let's move on to the results, though. I got those somewhat wrong, didn't I? I said that Sebastien Ogier would not be able to match the pace of his teammates, and he did do that. So I was very wrong. He he did what he does best, doesn't he? You know, he took the lead early on and he managed from there, and that was that. It was kind of over in terms of the win until we saw Solberg's late charge, which obviously didn't come off, as I said. It was a typically mature and expert Ogier drive, wasn't it? He set 4 fastest times on Friday, took the lead, and then managed it for the rest of the weekend. And it became a relatively comfortable win after Solberg went off. He's still 43 points, I think, off the championship lead. I think winning the title this year is going to be a massive, massive ask for Ogier. I think it's probably going to be too much. But you have to say, after winning this one, going to Portugal, where he's going to have a favourable road position, another event that he's going to be strong at, he can plug away and be there to pick up the pieces. Could be kind to him, couldn't it? And I think we might need to reassess things after Portugal, because I think he could have made another significant step up the order. So a good weekend for Ogier. Really, really impressive performance, you have to say, don't you? And yeah, let's maybe reassess his championship bid after Rally Portugal. Moving on to Elfyn Evans. This felt like a return to the Elfyn Evans of 2025 for me. He wasn't super comfortable, particularly on Friday. He didn't seem to be able to match the times of his rivals. He was talking about not being comfortable in the car, all the usual things that we saw last year. But when the dust settled, he came away with second place overall. He had top Super Sunday points, top Power Stage points, and the championship lead. You know, this was classic, consistent Elfyn Evans, wasn't it? You know, and his major advantage in this championship battle is consistency. And the way that he needs to approach this championship fight is to maximise every single rally. And while the lack of pace was a bit of a frustration at times, you know, he did get faster as the weekend wore on. He got more comfortable with the car, and obviously by Sunday he was setting good times. You know, there was stage-winning pace, and he came away, as I said, with Super Sunday top Power Stage points, and it was, you know, it was a really, really consistent performance. And yes, opening the road in Portugal next time out is going to be a little bit difficult, less than ideal, but I think this was a really strong points finish. You know, he's had his ups and downs this season. Obviously, he went off in Croatia, so to come away from this with a championship lead and such a strong haul of points, I said he needs to maximise, and for me, he absolutely maximised. And that could make all of the difference when we get to the end of the season. And that brings us neatly on to Oliver Solberg, doesn't it? Because he did not maximise his weekend. If anything, he minimised it, because he left Gran Canaria with 0 points. It was tricky, wasn't it? You know, it was a little mistake with big consequences. So he misjudged a crest on the penultimate stage, went a little bit wide, hit a barrier, removed a wheel, game over. That was that. It was tough. You know, this is a tough thing to happen. And these things can happen. When you're pushing on, even if he said he wasn't pushing to the maximum, when you're in a fight, it can happen. And while that is true, it's also not good, is it? You know, the speed is there. There is no doubt that Solberg is fast enough to win rallies and to win championships. He won 6 stages across the weekend, and, you know, the battle, he was gaining on Ogier, and it was good to watch right up until it wasn't. And it's tough, isn't it? I've said that I don't think Solberg will win the title this year, and I think, you know, this is in a microcosm why, isn't it? This rally and the last rally went off on the first stage of the last rally, went off on the penultimate stage of this one. Ogier said it best, I think, didn't he? You know, being fast is important. Getting to the end is more important. And that is what Solberg needs to focus on. You know, he is fast, but he is still learning. He's still making mistakes, and that's okay. You know, he's a young guy. But though that is what he needs to focus on right now, isn't it? You know, I think the gravel events will suit him better. I think he could be a force to be reckoned with over the next few gravel rallies. But now he's shown he's fast enough. He now just needs to work on just tidying up those little errors, not taking those little risks, and just building points. You know, he needs to get into that little Evans rhythm and that Ogier rhythm, of course, of racking up the points, not taking so many risks. He could have settled for second place this weekend and he would have come away with a massive haul of points. Didn't do that. And this, you know, and that's the result, isn't it? So the speed is good. The corner was just too tight, as someone once said. And that's just what Solberg needs to work on right now. Let's just quickly wrap up the Toyota dominance then. So it was another good weekend for Sami Pajari. He finished on the podium for the 4th, I think, rally in a row. It was solid, wasn't it? Solid performance from Pajari, not the fastest, but he was there on the podium when it counted. That's a good weekend for me. I think he's impressed me this season, to be honest, Pajari. I think he's going in the right direction. And a nightmare start to the season in Monte Carlo, but since then, he's been solid. I think he's going places, and I don't think I'm the only one that thinks he's a future rally winner, but I think for me, he's starting to really grow into his position, and he's looking better and better, so that was good. For Takamoto Katsuta, a repeat of Kenya and Croatia. It was a bit of a long shot, wasn't it? I think a bit of a long shot. He won the opening stage, never really looked at the races after that, though, for me. What can you say? It wasn't a disaster, was it, by any means? It wasn't a disaster, but I think maybe it was just the inevitable dip after the highs of the last couple of rallies. So he just needs to move on, doesn't it? Just needs to take this as a reasonable result and just move forward and just keep trying to build. I think all he can do is try and build on what he's achieved so far this year, which is a lot, and see what he can do with it. While it wasn't a disaster for Takamoto Katsuta, I think for Hyundai, disaster is putting it a little bit lightly. What an absolute mess. Yes, they got all 3 cars to the end. Honestly, who frickin' cares? It was rubbish. They were nowhere. Understeer was the word of the weekend for Hyundai. They could not match Toyota, not a single fastest stage time. Really? I mean, what can you say about it? Danny Sordo was all right, showed decent pace in the early stages. He eventually sort of dropped off a little bit, though, didn't he? Ended up finishing 7th. Formo was the fastest Hyundai, or top Hyundai, in 5th place, with Neuville in 6th. It was just, it was terrible, wasn't it? What a terrible weekend for the team. You have to feel a bit sorry for them in a way. But if we're being really honest with ourselves, with one tarmac rally left in Japan, I think the sooner the tarmac spec i20 Rally 1 is deposited into a skip, the better, because, it's just a bit of a dog, isn't it? For a factory car to be so far off the pace, especially, a team like Hyundai, who have been so fast over the years. It was just terrible, wasn't it? It was an absolute, unmitigated disaster. Worse, somehow, than they did in the Canary Islands last year. So, just forget about it. Forget about it. Move on to Portugal. Get into the gravel rallies, survive Japan, and see what you can do, because the tarmac car is pants. Let's talk about M-Sport instead, because Hyundai is just not good news. So, Josh McAlin finally had a safe, solid weekend. No disasters. 8th place is nothing to write home about, of course, but I said before the rally in the preview that he just needs to survive, get through, and he did that. So, it was good from that perspective. I think McAlin has such a long way to go, but I think to stem the tide of disaster was probably a good thing, and about as much as he could have hoped for, especially with the pace deficit to Toyota anyway. Both M Sport cars were behind the Hyundais, which shows where they are on this type of rally. So he survived. Can't criticise that. He needed that. Steady the ship, and hopefully he can build from there and do a little bit better in Portugal. John Armstrong, while Josh did follow my advice, John Armstrong definitely did not. I was hoping that he would continue to show that speed with a little bit more consistency. Unfortunately, he had a bit of a messy rally. There was an overshoot on Friday, wasn't there, which he was a little bit lucky to get away with. And then on Saturday, I think it was, he was extremely lucky when he ran wide and just dinked the car off the road to avoid hitting an Armco barrier head on. That cost him 2 minutes because he got a little bit stuck and needed some help getting back on the road. And that summed up his weekend. It was not a great weekend for Armstrong. He seemed to be struggling with the car, struggling with getting the tyres in the window and keeping them in the window. And I think, for the first time, it felt like, at least, McAlin was on a similar pace. They were trading times at the tail end of the Rally 1 field, it has to be said. And yeah, for Armstrong, probably his least good performance so far this year. That said, it's been an encouraging start. I've had lots of positive things to say about Armstrong so far this year. And while this was not a great rally, I think he just needs to learn from it, doesn't he? He needs to take the lessons on tyre management, on getting the car where he needs it to be, and just reset a little bit for next time in Portugal and see what he can do. So a difficult one, this was always going to come. There was always going to be a difficult weekend, wasn't there? Just like for McAlin, there had to be a good weekend. For Armstrong, there had to be a bad one. So it's all about how both of them move forward, isn't it? McAlin needs to build, Now he's steady things. He needs to start building and trying to improve his pace. And for Armstrong, he needs to reset a little bit and just make sure his head's in the right place and continue to move forward. So that was M Sport. Let's just touch on WRC 2 quickly. Johan Russell won that in the Lancia ahead of Alejandro Cachon and Eric Cameli. Leo Russell, his brother, was in the fight, but he was slowed by a transmission issue that dropped him off the podium. You have to say, don't you, Johan Russell is looking very, very good this year. I said over the winter that Lancia was the right place for him. And I think he's showing that. You know, he's had 2 wins on the bounce, difficult start to the year, 2 wins in a row. He's in a good place, isn't he? Yes, there's still a massive, massive question mark over the Lancia in terms of its gravel performance. We're going to see how that plays out in Portugal. But if the car is good on gravel, and, you know, I hope it should be because the Citroen got to a point where it's pretty good on gravel, you have to say that he's the clear championship favourite, which is great in itself. But more than that, you have to remember the bigger picture and part of the reason why I said that Russell should stick with Lancia is because once we get into 2027, that car, in theory, should be able to fight for overall wins because the new 27 cars will be apparently level on pace with the current WRC2 cars. So, you know, Russell could find himself as WRC2 champion this year, which would be fantastic, but he could also find himself in an extremely well-developed Rally 2 car going into a season where that car is capable of outright wins and is up against some very new WRC2 cars that are perhaps not so well developed, and that might give him an opening. So I have a lot to be positive for Russell. I think he's doing very well this year, and I think his long-term prospects are finally looking good, and hopefully he will get the chance to win some rallies outright, because you have to say his performances over the last couple of seasons have said to me that he deserves it. He deserves to be in a top team, in a top car, competing for outright wins. So hopefully that will happen, and hopefully the Lancia is the place to do it. So that's it. I'm going to stop talking about Islas Canarias and stop talking in general before my voice goes hoarse. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you think it was a boring rally, or do you think it was worth watching? And were there any surprises for you in the results as well? Do let me know in the comments. While you're there, make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons as always. And all that remains for me to say is thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again in the next one.